Good evening and welcome to the Gentlemen's Club. I'm your host, Cassandra McLean, and this forum here is about getting the Black man's perspective on issues that affect them in America. From politics to social issues to economics and how it affects their lives and our lives. This is the Gentlemen's Club. And without further ado, let's start to introduce our panelists that we have here today. So if you would, our first, let us know who you are and where you're from.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Reggie. I'm originally from New York, but right now I'm residing in DC.
Okay.
Yeah. What's going on? This is Fortune 500 from Mount Vernon, and just happy to be here.
And finally?
My name is PJ, and I go by the Prophet, and I am originally from Mount Vernon, and I can't wait to have fun with you. I swear to tell you, go keep for nothing but the truth side and God.
Okay. So BJ, we can't hear you a little bit, so if you could just kind of get closer to the mic, that would be great, just so we can get everything that you want to talk about and we can hear you a little bit more clearly.
Check.
Yeah, we can. If you know. Yeah. Okay, great. So, guys, let's start out with talking about like where we are right now, right? We have an actual huge election that's happening this year, right? Obviously, for many of us, I know myself, but a lot of other people, we're feeling like we need to get rid of Donald Trump. Others are like, no, we need to keep him because of like what's been going on. And so the first question that I want to talk about is like, where do we stand on politics today, right? Where do you stand? Where do you think like the Black community should stand? And probably I think maybe we should focus on maybe what your perspective is with regards to the two candidates, right? We have Donald Trump, who represents for our now the Republican Party, and we have Joe Biden, which is representing the Democratic Party. For some, we feel like the two-party system is just too, it's just too isolating and polarizing. And so I'd like to also hear your issues or your perspectives with regards to that, with the two-party system. And if we're gonna get a little personal, like maybe we'll talk about who you intend on voting for, and why or why not.
Or who you voted for. Because early voting.
Right, or who you voted for, exactly. So who you're voting for or who you have voted for. So actually, Fortune, if you want to start and kind of take this question, let's go.
Well, as far as American politics, I believe it's a shady business, like all politics. I just think it's just getting to the point now, it's getting so bipartisan. Everybody's picking sides. And sometimes not all of us fall into one side. There's so many. So for like Black men, I think we should have like maybe another option, another party, somebody who will pander to our demographic specifically, because we tend to be the ones that are at the bottom of the totem pole, the ones who are incarcerated most, the ones who are being killed, the ones who are not really getting the American dream like to the extent of other people. So I really believe the politics is not really where it should be, but I do like the fact that a lot of people are being involved and in trying to change that narrative. And that's one aspect that I really like.
Interesting that you said that, like specifically with regards to like an agenda specific to Black people. I think that
actually Black men.
or, I mean, well, okay, black men. I mean, America
I mean,
is kind of big though, but I hear you.
well, because the thing is, when you talk about black people, right? Traditionally, a lot of the black help has gone to the women and children. You know, a lot of the aid but a lot of the legislation that negatively impacts black people impacts black men. You know, the incarceration, the new stop and frisk, all these other legislation that directly impacts us that doesn't benefit us. So that's why I say our issues is separate from just the black people in general.
And I don't want to go off topic, but I do want to just kind of point out that's really what Ice Cube was saying, right? So he was just like, hey, we have a contract here, and I'm all about just black people in general. And he's just like, who's going to listen to this contract? Are we going to be talking about it? And I want to focus in on whatever party is going to do that, right? So, so that's a particular niche and a question that we probably need to figure out. Is it that we're looking specifically, like you said, for you as a voter, how is the politics helping black men in particular? So with that, I think I'm going to open up a little bit maybe, and let's just see what you guys others have to say. So I don't know if PJ or Reggie, you guys like to kind of come in with an opinion, and then we'll kind of like just go off of like what Fortune was saying. So in particular, remember, we're going back on talking about politics, talking about the agenda, and whether or not we need to have a candidate that is focused specifically on the issues that are important to black men. PJ?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, so my general take on it is we have two white men in their 70s that are running for leaders of the free world. Our choices are limited, okay? And the reality of it is that we have to pick one. And I would agree that we have to pick the lesser of two evils. And in this election, I'm going to go Biden because, of course, the lines more with closer to the agenda in which I would like to have. We're not going to get it all, but our goal is to push the needle closer and closer to where we need to go. The last 4 years, I've been critical of my friends and my colleagues and all those who did not vote in the past, and they didn't want to vote for Clinton, as I really didn't either. But it was the same story then, where we have to figure out which choice we got to make. And their point was burn it down, let it all crumble. And I think that we got a good look at what burning it down looks like. Well, pretty close. So now it's okay. You saw where that took us. 200,000 people dead. I mean, think about it. 9/11 was 3,500 people. I think today's numbers were 2,500. Nationally, every 80,000 people today got that virus. And every expert, every scientist in the world says this can have been, not necessarily prevented, but it could have been mitigated. So when you say burn it down, I think this is what they meant.
So that's interesting. Like, when you say burn it down, you're like burn it down because I don't know if the democratic system did not get burned down, right? So burn it down, kind of, if anything, the Democratic Party was burnt down. right?
The whole establishment, I believe when they say burn it down, they meant the entire system, the establishment, the democratic two-party system. They meant it all.
Right, but the two-party system didn't break down, right? Because here we are now 4 years later, and so if the idea was to burn it down by not voting, by saying I'm not supporting Hillary, like I'll just whatever, we'll just let and see what else or whatever happens. The parties still exist. That two-party system still exists, and so I guess maybe what I'm asking right now then is, so did we burn it down, or did we just kind of like push forward this same two-party system, right? And just let the other side win. Like,
what I think happened is we allowed for the worst of the worst to rear its head, and we've allowed Trump to systematically take over every institution that we had a problem with. What we thought was bad, he made it worse, right?
mm-hmm.
Those will argue that for him, from a business level, would argue, well, he lowered the taxes. You know, as a business owner, honestly, I like that.
Right.
You know, that's where probably the only thing that I like. But that's speaking from a selfish point of view, right? And when you make policy or public agendas, you want to think for the broad coalition of everyone. You don't just want to just think about yourself. And when most people are making their political decisions, they're only thinking about themselves. So I believe what he did is he broke every other institution down to show you how bad it can get. Point, he burned it down. So now, if it took the left and pushed the left even further to the progressive agenda, so now you got to listen to AOC. Now you got to listen to those demands. So to their point, they did get some of what they wanted, right? And now has to listen to. You wanted Bernie's agenda. He has to listen to Kamala's agenda. He has to invoke, free college tuition, right? They're talking about getting rid of student debt. So there was a lot of good that came out of it, right? So I think we're going in the right direction.
Okay, so we burnt down the ideology that we cannot move close to that middle, right? Right? The ideology of you have Democrats who are like close to being Republican and Republicans that are close to being Democrats, right? And so we've kind of if there is a burning down, we did not burn down the institution, but we burnt down the idea okay, you got to listen to these people, right? And so we have a politician like no other, he, that he's come in and said, I am an outsider. I've come in here and I'm just, throwing and saying whatever I want. But in doing so, it has burned down the everything that you just talked about. Yeah.
And I think another problem is that, speaking for myself, I try not to identify with Republican or Democrat because I have so many different beliefs. I would claim myself as an independent thinker, but if you look at what I have more in common with is more along the Democratic line, so therefore I would classify myself as a Democrat. But I wish there was another category of just saying I'm an independent, and I hear that Puffy's agenda. He's trying to start his own black men coalition. That
was a black party. I think it was. That Puffy was trying to do was a black party.
And so, is that possible? Reggie, can I just kind of bring you into the conversation and ask you? Do you think it's possible? So, just like Fortune was just talking about, Puffy wants to make a black party. Do you think that idea is even possible? And if that is possible, what does that look like? And can it hit all the different points that we need it to hit?
Yeah, I would say this political climate brought about, regardless of whoever's on what side, an awareness of what's going on in politics. I think there's a lot of people previously, whether black, white, or other, who didn't really know like the mechanisms behind the government. And it's just like now a lot of people are really getting in. You see people who normally wouldn't run as politicians or become politicians. And I think that's good, right? Like if you want to like have yourself represented, who better than yourself? You know what I mean? They say we live in a democracy, but it's more of a representative democracy. So it's the idea that you're voting, but you're voting for someone to vote on your behalf. So there's that middleman step, essentially, or middle person step, and we see that with the Electoral College. But I think a lot of people now are trying to get into the idea of like, all right, if I want to be represented, like, let it be somebody that's me. Let it be somebody that's directly associated with me. So in that essence, yeah, I think definitely, I think people, let me take that back. There's been a whole bunch of parties. People don't realize it, but there's like about 215 parties, right?
That's
so
right.
When you go vote for like president, there's like 215 people that you could vote for. We only know about the two biggest ones because of whether it's money or recognition. We only know about those, but like, I think it's very possible, and I think it's always good when other people are trying to get representation out that more reflects their values, as opposed to like someone or signing on to someone that some party that may not be like representing them. So yeah, I think it's possible to do that. Yeah, definitely.
I think it's possible. So what do you think? How do you think we can get there? Like, where do you think? How can we get to that? I guess going back to Fortune, he's talking about, and he said specifically black men, but we'll go back to Puffy talking about black people and that specific party. So yes, we can get there, but how do we get there? You know, like what are the mechanisms that work to break through this two-party system? Like you said, there's 215 or whatever, how many different parties that have been able to even get themselves on a ballot, right? To say that they want to run for president, and we're just talking nationally, right? But how do we get there? How do you get this voice? How do you become strong, you know, and able to really push the agenda that is important to us as Black people?
I think honestly, I think it starts with a lot of introspection. Like, we have to know each other. We have to know ourselves, see what problems we have, see what problems are caused by the system that we live in, see what problems are caused by like other people that we may encounter. And we need to like do some like introspection, see like, all right, I see that this particular law is not suiting me. So let me go ahead and understand what that law is doing. Let me go ahead and come up with another law or come up with another referendum or whatever the case is to like better suit me and like some constituents that believe what I believe. So I think there's gonna be a lot of, and it's gonna be one of those things. It's like, you're not gonna automatically have a party have all like a list of everything you want and then it's gonna be good. Like it takes a while. Like, the Republicans and Democrats are still kind of fine-tuning what their true platforms are, and it changes all the time. So I think it's just going to require just like a lot of communication, a lot of reaching out. Social media is a really good tool for that kind of a thing, and just like getting to like the root of what people feel like they're like major, like prioritize it, like their issues or plights. Stuff like that.
Absolutely.